Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to for StarCraft 2 strategy. Today we're going to be taking a look at a Terran strategy. Now in this particular replay, our Terran player here is Jimpo, and our Zerg opponent is Aristio. So let's go into Jimpo vision. So yes, a Terran strategy today. What are we looking at? We're going to be looking at starting the game off with a Marine and Hellion type of build. Going to be getting one barracks, one factory, producing some Marines and Hellions, and we're going to be picking and prodding at our opponent. Essentially, we're going to be trying to apply some early pressure, the purpose being that we're going to be going for a quick expansion. And so in doing some early aggression in the beginning of the game, the goal is to kind of distract them, keep them occupied, just to buy ourselves enough time to get up that expansion safely. Now, something to note is that, a lot of Zerg players like to fast expand, and that's great. Essentially, the way Zerg functions with larva, the truth is that they kind of need one more base than their opponent in order to stay on par with them. So for example, if you've got your first base, they really need two bases to stay on par with you because of the larva and just the way that the race works. Having a second base is pretty much essential to stay even with your opponent. So if you can get up a quick expansion against Zerg, and even if they are fast expanding themselves, this is actually going to put you in a really strong position because you can maintain constant production of SCVs from two bases, and then you can also maintain constant production of units, Marines, Marauders, siege tanks, whatever you're making out of your production facilities. Now Zerg always has to make that decision due to their larva of whether or not they want to make workers or units. So if you can again stay on the same amount of bases that they have, then that actually puts you at an advantage. So before we get into things here, let's take a look at this build order. Start off with a 10 supply depot, following it up with a 12 barracks, and then a 13 refinery, and then of course that 16 orbital command. Very, very, very standard opener. I'm going to be coming out with these Marines here with this barracks, trying to get that supply depot down to block the drone out. Didn't happen, unfortunately, and it looks like he's probably going to be stealing our gas, which is something a lot of Zerg players like to do. Honestly though, it's not a big deal. With this build, we're not going to need 2 gas anytime relatively soon. In fact, once we get our first 100 gas, we're going to be pulling workers off of that refinery there because we're going to need those extra minerals to get up that quick expansion. So moving into their base, we saw very standard stuff here. We saw that quick expansion, which nearly every Zerg player likes to do against Terran and Protoss. Pretty standard stuff there. Very few Zerg players like to play off one base against Terran and Protoss. You see a lot more one base play from Zerg in mirror matchups, but against TNP it doesn't really happen very often. So as you can see here, coming out with these Marines, this factory's coming up. We did drop that factory at 19 supply, and again, we took all of our workers off that refinery as soon as we had enough gas to build this factory, and the reason is because we do need those extra minerals so that we can go ahead and get up that quick expansion. And that's something to consider. Don't be afraid to take workers off of your refinery or simulator or extractor, because it can be, depending on the type of build you're going for, it can be very beneficial. And with this type of build, we're trying to get up this fast expansion. Having those extra minerals is going to be pretty vital. After that point, we can go ahead and put them back on the refinery so that we can work up to higher tech later on. But for our initial purposes, we do need those extra minerals faster, and that's exactly why we did that. So as you can see here, pushing forward with these Marines, we do have this Hellion that's going to be following up. There it is. And so here we go. This is exactly what I was talking about. We just want to push forward. We want to do some damage, see what we can do, and basically just try to be a nuisance. All we're really trying to do is buy time to get up this expansion and defend it. So you can putting a bunker down there. So something else to note too is that you do of course want to try to micro your Marines away from Zerglings. You don't want them to get surrounded if at all possible. Zerglings are most effective whenever they surround units. So if you can prevent that, that's definitely going to put you in a good position. And then also something to note, the way that the Hellion works is that that flame shot moves directionally. So if you can line up units, like if you can line up drones as Zerglings, that's going to be the best spot for you. For example, right there when all these guys are lined up, that's when your Hellion's going to be able to do the most damage, and that's something you definitely want to try to take advantage of. And as you can see there, pretty much easily took down all of those Zerglings. So yeah, we're just harassing, we're just trying to buy some time, stop him from mining if at all possible, kill some units, but the main goal is just getting this up, and now it's finally up, and basically mission accomplished at this point. We can essentially leave right now. We have it pretty well defended. If we bring the Hellions back, we can defend from any Zerglings running around this way. I'm also going to be coming out with some additional barracks now that we have this expansion up. We're going to start to be able to afford more production buildings. And then here's that transition into siege tanks. So we started off with Marine Hellion, and we're going to be following it up with Marine Tank, also getting some medevacs as well. So taking a look at when we got these things here, so the factory did of course come down to 19 supply. That command center came down at 29 supply. At 33 supply, that's when we got our second refinery. And then these 2 additional barracks came at 33 and 36 supply. And like I said, this is basically the type of build we're going to look to go with. We started off with that Marine Hellion for harassment. We're going to follow that up with a Marine tank build, and then coupled with some medevacs, basically to assist in that composition there. It's going to be, you know, it's basically a good addition. Obviously, medevacs are going to be very beneficial for your Marines. And aside from that, you know, it's going to allow you to be a lot more mobile, allow you to do some dropping. So at this point, you know, we're just going to be taking advantage of the fact that we are in a better position than them because we're even in bases. And again, I went over at the beginning of this cast how staying even with Zerg when it comes to the number of bases actually puts you in a better position than they are, because they, again, to function properly, they do need one more base than their opponent. So at this point, we're just going to be trying to get some upgrades, pumping out these Marines, pumping out these siege tanks, also coming down with the starport right now at about 60 supply. The exact number isn't so necessary, just the fact that you're going to want to get it to get some medevacs out. Also going to begin this tech lab here. We do want to start to get some research done, stim pack, and as well as that combat shield. Going to be pretty necessary. Don't necessarily need to go for that concussive shell because we don't intend on getting marauders. Now maybe, you know, if you saw a really roach heavy build, you might want to switch over a little bit. But the other thing to note is that the siege tanks aren't terrible against roaches either. I mean, you do want to try to avoid the roaches running up and getting us around to do damage. Basically, if they get up really close within range, obviously the tanks can't shoot them there, but as long as you can prevent that, you should be pretty well off there. So getting these additional refineries up, now that we have the starport up and we do want to be coming out with medevacs, we're going to be hurting a little bit for Vespene gas, so it's going to be necessary to get those additional refineries up. And you know, at this point you really are in a strong position, especially once you get these siege tanks sieged up. You're going to be in a really strong position. Getting 2 reactors here as well on these barracks. Again, we're going for a very Marine heavy build. We can just use this one tech lab for upgrades, starting off with the stim pack, and then it's going to be followed up with that combat shield as well. Now, scanning our opponent's base, we saw that they were in fact getting a spire here. We did see that spire coming up. So in seeing that, we know that he doesn't quite have, he hasn't taken full advantage of it yet, so we are going to be pushing out, trying to do as much damage as possible, essentially. So moving out with these tanks and Marines. And something to note about positioning too, when you push out with something like this, you do want to make sure that your Marines stay very close to your siege tanks. They're going to be necessary to protect them. You want to protect them from the mutas as well as from any roaches or any other units getting really close and trying to get us around on them. So don't stray too far away from your tanks with your Marines. Keep them relatively close. That's again going to provide the best kind of safety net for your siege tanks. And then you can just kind of creep up, use the vision that you're gaining from your medevac as well. Poke it a little bit forward, give your tanks extra sight so they can shoot a little bit further. Now here's an example here. Definitely don't want to do that. Definitely want to try to keep them as close as possible to your siege tanks. Again, don't stray too far, because you can run into a lot of issues. So you can see here our opponent's bringing down a ton of roaches, and what he's trying to do, his goal is to get up as close to the tanks as possible and then just try to snipe them down, and that's actually exactly what he did there. But you know, with our Marines, they're very strong counters to actually both roaches and to Mutalisks, especially once they start to get upgraded with stim pack, and even that weapons level upgrade, which you can see that coming right here. Once that comes in, we're going to do very well against these units. These medevacs, of course, being very helpful as well. So, you know, try to keep these units alive. Something else I do want to know is how important macro is in a situation like this. Now, you can see, obviously, we've been concentrating on this battle, concentrating on making sure that we don't lose our units, but this entire time, look at this, units have been coming out. And that's as easy, for people who don't use hotkeys on a regular basis, that's as easy as using hotkeys. All you have to do is, you know, he's got his barracks hotkey to 4, factory to 5, starport to 6. All you have to do is you hit 4, you pump out a bunch of Marines. You hit 5, you pump out some siege tanks. You hit 6, you pump out some medevacs. And you can do all of that without looking at your base. And yeah, it really goes to show you that hotkeys are absolutely vital to doing well in this game. If you can manage to use hotkeys properly, then that's going to put you in a much greater position than an opponent who doesn't. Because again, as you can see, that whole time while we were fighting, we were still able to produce lots of units back at our base. And it is really important to be able to do that and to be comfortable in doing something like that. So moving forward now, our Marines are even stronger than they were in the last engagement. We do now have that combat shield as well as that level 1 upgrade. and that's precisely why upgrading your units is so important. And once again, my computer is failing terribly. Really can't believe. So tired of this. I'm actually going to be trying to get a new computer this weekend, guys, so hopefully I do, and then we will be seeing no freezing of my game while casting. So he's moving forward, trying to pick down the siege tank, but at this point he realizes that there's so many Marines and they're so strong with those upgrades, there's not much he could do. In fact, you did see some banelings in there that he tried to get to deal with the Marines. As you can see, though, with siege tanks, this is exactly why this combination is good. Siege tanks are used to snipe down the banelings, and the Marines pretty much handle everything else. So yeah, let's go ahead and go over that build order one more time. We started off with a 10 supply depot, followed up with a 12 barracks and 13 refinery. 16 command is when we saw that. 16 supply is when we saw that orbital command. 19 supply, we saw a factory there. 29 supply, coming out with that fast expansion. Now this was the point in time that we were harassing, trying to do some damage and just try to be a pain in the butt to our opponent, and the whole goal was to distract them and buy ourselves enough time to get up this fast expansion, and we in fact did do that. Also getting up a bunker, some early defense, that coupled with those Marines and Hellions, it pretty much makes you pretty safe from any early pushes, counter pushes from Zerg. 33 supply, we saw our second refinery. Now that was the point we started transitioning into tanks as well. Once you start to transition into tanks, you are going to need a second refinery. That additional gas is going to be very necessary. And then the 33 and 36 supply, we also started getting these additional barracks. And then, after that point, putting these attachments on there, the tech labs and the 2 reactors, getting those upgrades, that stim pack, that combat shield as well. Also going to be getting an engineering bay to try to get that level 1 upgrade, follow that up with that infantry armor. And then another thing to note is that to get that second level, you are going to need an armory, so dropping that down after that is going to be essential as well. So yeah, guys, pretty strong build. Early game Marine Hellion harassment into fast expansion, and then switching into tank Marine with some medevacs. This can be a very effective build against Zerg opponents. So once again, this has been Force StarCraft 2 Strategy. If you guys like our videos, then please do go ahead and subscribe to our channel. Keep watching and keep owning, guys. On these early ground forces, and then once you fend off those Banshees, push out, you're going to be in a very strong spot, and that's precisely what we're going to be seeing here. So as you can see, moving forward with these siege tanks, Marines, that one Marauder, medevac, and again, just a little bit of everything, and this is the versatility that 1-1-1 build allows you to have.